Hey everybody, how's it going today? If you're a new lawyer looking to hang your shingle, or you just want to make a nice sign, today I'm going to show you on this DIY how to make your own shingle so you can hang it yourself. This is using very simple materials and just embracing a do-it-yourself kind of culture. I'll walk you through it. It's a lot of fun, and you'll feel really good when you have a sign hanging out in front of your business and you know that you made that yourself with your own two hands. Okay, so these are the materials you're going to need for this project. We got a wooden plaque, some tape, golden paint pen, some stain, graphite paper, which we use to transfer the design onto the wood, and then I have this little soldering thing. Okay, here's the design printed out, and to get to there we jump into Google Slides. You could also use PowerPoint, but I wanted to use a program that was free, accessible to everyone. So this was what I used to design the logo, which ended up on my shingle, or should I say the design for my sign. Okay, so I go ahead and measured the size of the wooden plaque that I purchased, and adjusted the size of the slide so it matches up. If not, you could do some trial and error, printing it out and resizing it and stuff, but the more work you do in advance saves you time in the end. Alright, so this is a good opportunity to mention, this sign is for my law office, the law office of Gabriel Munoz-Calene, PLLC. Now, I am a lawyer, but this video does not constitute legal advice. But I am a lawyer, so naturally as I make this video and future videos, I may discuss generally about the law or legal topics and everything. But this is applicable for all sorts of people. It's a good DIY project, to promote any business. But I just wanted to put that out there because it's a very interesting line between, would this constitute advertising for my business, or is this just a DIY video? So I'm just saying up front, if I'm doing a straight up advertisement for my business, I'll say it explicitly. This isn't that, but this is, a video that I'm producing that shares a part of myself. Therefore, my business is a part of myself. My business has my name on it. So it's a very interesting issue, but I won't go much farther than that today. So I brought in the scales of justice. I'm doing some formatting, adjusting the size, choosing a font. I selected a serif font, with kind of an old, more traditional style. Truthfully, when designing this plaque, you want to make the images and the font as big as possible. It'll save you a lot of time in the end. I probably could have made my letters a little bigger, and it would have made it much easier for me. But it ended up working, and you can get an idea for the process. So I really like Google Slides and also PowerPoint. I have a background in multimedia, video, graphic design. I've kind of dabbled in all of these things, but one thing I like about slides and PowerPoint is that it's very fast to be able to do some very powerful things with text and images, where a lot more powerful programs like Photoshop make it too complicated to do some simple things. And that's one reason why I'm a big advocate for these programs, and I incorporate them into my law practice. I have a background in litigation technology. Things like PowerPoint in the courtroom and things like that are all very exciting and kind of interesting developments. So, my design's coming together. Basically printing it out. Here we go. And in order to transfer my design now onto the physical wooden sign, I taped down this graphite paper. I got the graphite paper and the wooden plaque at Hobby Lobby, not under $10 for both. So I taped down the paper, and then on top I taped down my design, holding it all in place. And now it's just simply a matter of transferring the image to the wood. And I chose to use a pencil. You could use a pen, but there's something poetic about using the graphite of a pencil to go through the graphite paper and then onto the imprint of the wood. And little details like that I find personally amusing and fulfilling. So, but you could use whatever. All right. So I guess going to talk about the cost of this project, this was under $15 to make this sign, and I did make two versions. At the end I'll show you the alternate version. But the only thing that I think that would affect that budget is the solderer or wood burner. I got mine at a flea market for $1, so that greatly affected my budget or overall costs for this project. However, they sell them at Walmart. They sell them at Hobby Lobby, Michael's for about $10 to $15. You could get a cheap wood burner. So just to give you an idea, but if you keep an eye out for one, you can find one cheap used. So here what I'm doing is I'm taping the edges so that there can be a nice border all the way around. I've plugged in my solderer or my wood burner. To be honest, I don't even know what it is. I think it is a soldering for more for like metal and circuit type stuff, and not necessarily for wood. But you know, it worked. So I'm starting on the back, kind of trying to make a hole where the nail to hang it would be. And the reason I'm starting here is I'm getting used to it. I'm warming it up. I'm getting a good sense of the fit and the feel of how it works. And I'm doing it on the back on a part that won't be, you know, visible. And that's the key. So similarly, now I'm starting on the front and I'm starting in the corner, not at a major central area of the design. You know, you want to start slow and kind of get a feel for it. And this particular design, as I mentioned, I did two versions. In this one, what I'm doing is I'm burning out the negative space. So the design itself is the only part that I'm not burning away or carving away, and then I'm going over that with the gold. Now I do have another version where instead all I did was carve out the design itself and the background was smooth. And this was just walking around my neighborhood looking at different wooden signs, and I saw how this style of having the background kind of cut away, and I liked the look of it, so I was like, okay, I'll try it that way. Now that tape border all the way around is just so I can have, you know, a nice solid border all the way around, and that's what it's for, as a guide. And as you can see, I'm getting more and more used to the feel of it. The thing's heating up, and I'm carving a little bit deeper, nice and slow, you know, just going away, getting a feel for it, taking long strokes if I can. And also, to be honest, this project was performed over the course of several days, so I don't want you to think I did this all in 20 minutes. You know, it does get tiring to carve it away. It's a slow process, and I used it more as a relaxing, meditative kind of thing. So, you know, don't expect the whole thing to be done instantly. But what you're really doing is getting a feel for the pressure and, you know, the way it cuts, trying to get a feel for the wood also, and then really you get more and more careful as you get closer up to the design. You want to, you know, be very careful as you cautiously approach up by the design. So here we can see a little bit more of what it's looking like, and you know, don't be afraid of making little mistakes. This isn't something that requires perfection. Really, it's a fun thing to do, and it's rewarding to look at the sign when it's done. But you can cover up a lot of mistakes with the gold pen afterwards, and also with a couple other tricks I'll show you to scrape away. And also the staining really transforms the wood and really makes it look like a professional sign. here I'm going around the outer boundary of the sign, and as you can see, going against the grain, I guess they call it, doesn't go as smooth as when you're going side, with the grain. So you can see it's kind of choppy there, but I'm just kind of tracing it out, punching it out, and then going back to go with the grain. So now you can see I'm eating up a lot of that negative space. A lot of the empty parts are getting carved out, and I'm leaving the detail to go to only after I'm really comfortable and really have a flow for how everything works. So one reason I decided to make my own sign, it's common for a young solo attorney to go out on their own. They call it hanging their shingle, and the shingle being the wooden sign. And the poetry of that, I really liked the idea, especially with the DIY culture. If I'm going to hang my shingle, I want the shingle to be something I made myself. And I found that to be really rewarding. And like I said, every day when I go up to my office and I open the door, I see my shingle, and it's rewarding to know that I carved it myself. Scales of justice, working on this portion and carving around it and contemplating on the scales and how the scales are linked with the concept of the law and justice. And it's a symbol that has a lot of history and goes really far back, and those are the kinds of things I find interesting. So again, just getting closer and closer, getting more comfortable, going into some of the fine details. A lot of it is just kind of, you get a sense for it, a gentle touch when you're right up on the edge, and then carving away the bigger chunks more forcefully. And this concept of carving out the negative space, as I mentioned, if you look at wooden signs around, a lot of them do have this look where they carved out the negative space. The negative space, one graphic design element that I really like that uses negative space well is the FedEx logo. If you ever look at a FedEx truck or a FedEx sign, you'll see that the space between the E and the X is an arrow pointing to the right, which is almost like a subconscious message, the arrow going to the right of like moving forward, delivering the package and all that. So I remember a buddy of mine many years ago pointed that out to me, and ever since I've been really interested in the idea of negative space as a way to transmit. And in this, the negative space is carved out, and the image of the sign, the scales and the words are smooth. And I'm just carving out a few little details here in the scale from the design. The little accent marks that really, I think, add dimension to it. So now I'm getting up closer to the letters, and as I mentioned, ideally I think maybe having the letters a little bigger. I have a rather long last name because Munoz-Calene, it's both my father's and my mother's last name, hyphenated, and I really love that part of my name, and I'm very proud and I embrace both aspects of my last name. But in this particular case, it did make me have to squeeze a lot of letters onto the sign. And again, here you're not looking for perfection. You can really make up for you can hide a lot of little mistakes going through this process. So just do the best you can, and I think you'll be surprised at how good you can make it look in the end. Alright, so there we go. We have all the negative space carved out. Oh, I missed the G. I got ahead of myself here. So another thing I like about the shingle design is the whole idea of the frontier lawyer, or the old county seat lawyer, kind of like an Atticus Finch, Abraham Lincoln, Andrew Jackson, that kind of model. I really think that the attorney and counselor at law is a really neat concept that I think can still be relevant today. So I'm taking off this tape now to have that, more finished border all the way around, and basically I'm just applying the stain, doing several coats on each side, just liberally painting it. This stuff is flammable and smelly, so be careful with all that. But I think you'll see that it really does transform the wood, and this step really does take it to the next level. And again, you see I got that stain. I think I got it at Walmart, and it was the cheapest one I could find. So nothing special, but and like I said, I've only used it on I made 2 signs just because I wanted to experiment and see if I made a mistake on one, I'd have another one. So basically what I'm getting at is you got a lot of that stain, so just really be liberal with it. And you want to let it set in between. I let it dry for, just follow the directions on the side. I think it's like 15 minutes in between coats or something like that. All right, so you're supposed to wipe off with a cloth the excess when you're letting it dry on each side. That's an old sock from the military, an old army sock. So that worked, use what works. Just flip it over, stain both sides. I mean, of course, technically, don't have to stain both sides, but because, the back isn't going to be seen because it's going to be hung on the wall. But long term, if this is a sign I want to keep, and who knows where it's going to be, what I'm going to do with it, might as well not cut any corners and stain the whole thing. So yeah, as I mentioned, this was several days. So I did the first carving out, and then an initial layer, and then I stained it, one coat, and then the next day I worked on another coat. So now I have a black Sharpie marker, and then also this gold paint pen, and I used a mixture of both to really edge out. The black is more to kind of hide little areas, or maybe to accent, trace the outline of the letter, and then go back in the gold and then trace it in black a little bit. But it's pretty subtle because the wood is so dark, but it does have a positive effect. And these paint pens, it's not super fine tip, and it just kind of sometimes will just flow with a lot of paint. But don't be afraid if you go outside the lines a little bit or spill over, because I'll show you some little tricks you can do. But again, this is several coats as well. But this is where the sign really comes together. I really liked, I was pleased with the effect I was able to create with just such a simple tool. I think this was like $2, $2.50, something like that. Maybe got it at Michael's, I don't remember. But just a paint pen, gold. And another thing to emphasize here while you're looking at it is you'll see, there's little, like at the edge of the scale, those lines, the letters especially, it's not coming out perfect. It's, dripping and messy and, flowing around. So don't worry about it, but just push on through and do the best you can. Right here, oh, the ink went all over. Again, to reiterate, maybe a different font would have been helpful, but this was the font that I liked. It's a similar font that I've used on my business card and things like that. So, it was worth it for me in the end. But if you take some time in advance, you can really speed up the process and save yourself a lot of headaches. Again, several coats of this are necessary. And then once you have the gold where you like it, that's when you can start cleaning up the parts that went over. And for that, I just used a paper clip. As you can see here, I was trying to find something and I just scraped away the excess gold. And it ended up working really well. I was really pleased. At first I thought I was going to use that Sharpie marker, but really it's just a paper clip, scrape it away, and just some trial and error, adding some more. You can see there how the of really is starting to get fixed. But that's about it. I have a few more shots to show you of the finished product, but it's basically at this stage it's just fine tuning. So let me show you what the finished product looks like, and also I'll show you what the other version that I made. Okay, so here we can see the finished plaque to finish off the tutorial. Like I said, a fun little project, came out pretty nice. The gold really pops. The stain does a lot to transform it. As I mentioned, I made two versions of the sign. So we got, side by side, really it's using the same exact stencil, same design. This one I just carved out the design itself, and this one I carved out the negative space. Well, there you have it. Thanks for watching, and hopefully this inspires you to try out the project on your own. Also, please go ahead and check out my Redbubble. It has some of these art pieces posted up there for you to check out, and I'll put the link below. Alright, have a good day.